This is the first time I've ever heard of this painter. Are you familiar with his paintings?
No. I found out about him at the same time as you, when I saw his name on the professor's list.
I'll have to call my boss. Maybe he's come up with something on this painter. Do you think that the professor's death is connected to the story behind this portrait?
Are you suggesting that someone capsized his ship in order to get a hold of the portrait without arousing suspicion?
I know that's not very likely.
I think that the other paintings that sank were a lot more valuable.
You're right, but why does Vanbury sound so frightened in his recording? You knew Vanbury well. Judging by his behavior, do you think he had a sound mind?
Up until now, yes. But after hearing everything you've just...
A cytale. It's a system that deciphers messages written on strips of paper. Cytales have been used since ancient times. Yanik Tev Kif Han S Okak 734 110 Fatih Istanbul Yanik Tevkifan Sokak 7 34 110 Fatih Istanbul. It looks like an address in Istanbul. This Yanik might be Frieden's accomplice. This cylinder is damaged. Oh, I've bungled it.
November 1870. I have just come back to Budapest, exhausted, and no longer have the strength to write. I shall therefore dictate this journal to stamp in my memory the tragic events I experienced in Vladoviste. My struggle with Dracula concluded in a stalemate. The Count will certainly not come after me in Budapest, but I had to flee far from his land. If I were to return, I'd be immediately arrested as an accomplice to murder. In his Transylvanian stronghold, Dracula is untouchable. His will is law, and no one disobeys him. He does occasionally change his hunting ground, for he is hungry for new prey. That is the reason he bought a house in Budapest. Fate caused him to choose as his notary my friend Leon Hartner, then to desire his wife and take flight with her. With Jon, we set out in pursuit of the accursed couple. I quickly understood that the Count was drawing Luciana onto the path of the dragon. By an engagement present, he wanted to offer her eternity. We followed the lovers from city to city, but unfortunately, we were always one step behind. And when, at last, our long chase led us to Vladoviste, we didn't even have time to enter the Count's castle before the horror struck us. We were staying at the inn. My room communicated with Jon's. In the night, I heard Luciana's voice calling out to her husband. My friend, neither ignoring or rather refusing to accept what his wife had become, invited her up to join him. His imprudence would be fatal. Luciana would have bled her husband dry if I hadn't intervened. I battered down the door between our rooms and pierced the vampire's heart. I urged Jon to leave the inn immediately, but he remained prostrate and refused to follow me. As I had feared, my friend was arrested and indicted for the murder of his wife. I learned he died in his cell. The paper spoke of suicide, but I discerned in his death the work of the Count, whose influence extends into the prisons. Prudence obliged me to return to Budapest as quickly as possible. I forced myself, nonetheless, to visit Luciana's grave and deal with her corpse according to the ritual. I didn't want to leave without the absolute certainty that she'd lie in eternal peace. As for her master and lover, Count Dracula, I admit that I shrunk back from him. Others will come, I hope, to resume the combat. It is for them that I preciously conserve my archives on the path of the dragon. For me, the fight is over.
I can't believe it. The note on the side of the cylinder says that the professor's grandfather made the recording. I'm starting to understand why he was so obsessed with Dracula. He was brought up in a vampire-fearing environment, and he grew up with the enormous burden of having to keep a portrait of the vampire secret. The more I discover, the more surreal this whole... But I would be immensely disappointed to leave the investigation before actually seeing the painting. I already have enough of this.
Metropolitan Director's office, hello?
Hello, it's Ellen Cross.
Ellen, so, what's the update?
I haven't gotten a hold of the portrait, but I have made some disturbing discoveries. Vanbury was totally paranoid. He installed a vault underneath the cemetery adjacent to the manor. Inside, I found a real Vlad Tepes museum.
Living in the town of the Dracula novel ended up getting to him. Poor guy. And I found information on the painter Yanik. He was a 16th century Istanbul artist. I haven't found any mention of his works. However, my assistant tells me that through the centuries the name Yanik became Yanik.
Yanik? I can't believe it. Friedland, the Budapest prisoner, had an encoded message in his belongings. I managed to decipher it. It's the address of someone named Yanik in Istanbul.
Ellen, have you ever been to Turkey?
No.
Well, here's your opportunity. Go and pay a visit to this man. If he's a descendant of the painter Yanik, he might be able to give you information on the portrait. Also, try to get more information on his connection with Friedland, but be careful.
Very well. I think that I finally have a lead on the painter of the portrait. With the sightale in your bedroom, I was able to decipher the message that the suspect Friedland had on him when he was arrested. It's the address of someone named Yanik in Istanbul. My boss thinks that he might be a descendant of the painter Yanik. I'm not sure if that'll take us anywhere, but it's a start. Does the Path of the Dragon remind you of anything?
Yes, it does. But where did you hear about it?
I heard it on the wax cylinder. It looks like the professor's grandfather recorded it.
The path of the dragon is just a legend about an initiation journey. Aspiring vampires had to follow this ritual in order to meet Dracula, the dragon. Different people have different theories about how humans become vampires. Some people say you just have to be bitten. Others say that you have to drink vampire blood.
And what do you think?
I don't think anything of it. Vampires are just a figment of the imagination.
Sometimes legends last because they're grounded in some way in reality.
The myth may have started with illnesses such as porphyria. The symptoms are similar: a pale complexion, bloodshot eyes, receding gum lines, and sun intolerance. During plague epidemics, it is also said that people were in such a hurry to bury bodies that they forgot to check if they were really dead. And when the poor guys buried alive managed to extricate themselves from their tombs, the terrified population thought they were ghosts. And then they stuck stakes into their hearts, killing them once and for all.
I've already heard these stories, but I find this recording really disturbing, and the professor really sounded terrified.
I'm surprised, Ellen. You shouldn't be taking Vanbury's flights of fancy so seriously.
You're right. I spend too much time reading. This incredible missing painting tale must be getting to me. I'm leaving for Istanbul.
Budapest, Whitby, and now Turkey. And to think that I thought that working for museums was really boring. From the time I've known you, I've had nothing but surprises.
I would have preferred to visit Istanbul under different circumstances. The man I have to meet there might have been in contact with the thief who died in Budapest.
It's a disturbing coincidence. Kaniak's descendant could thus be an accomplice in the Vanbury collection robbery.
That's possible. And if it turns out to be true, I'll have to be careful.
I would have liked to be your escort, but I have to stay here until the professor's inheritance is settled. But I would be really happy if you could keep me posted on this affair.
I will.
Take care of yourself, Ellen.
You too, Adam. Hello? Is anyone there? Mr. Yanik? Apparently there's no one here. This looks like Lilith. A painting by Jean Collier. It was part of the Vanbury collection.
Who let you in?
Sorry, I asked if anyone was inside. You must be Mr. Yanik. Sorry for intruding.
I am Mr. Yanik.
I'm Ellen Cross. I work for the Metropolitan Museum of Art in New York. I'd like to speak with you.
You could have phoned before just showing up at my place without asking.
I didn't have your number. I'm looking for a Kanayak painting. The information I have says that he was one of your ancestors.
A very distant one.
I was hoping that you might have some of the works he painted.
Unfortunately, I don't.
Are you a painter?
Yes, but I'm also a puppeteer.
I'd really like to see your work.
I'll send you an invite to my next exhibition.
Could I take a look at your Lilith painting there? It looks like a very good reproduction.
It is well executed, even if it's not as powerful as Jean Collier's painting. Unfortunately, I don't have time to show it to you this evening. I was getting ready to leave. I'm expected.
I'm sorry to be so insistent, but it's very important for me to examine your ancestors' paintings. Would you happen to know anyone who owns some of his works?
As far as I know, no collector has thought of his work as having any interest.
Does this name sound familiar to you?
You said Friedland, and why would I know him?
I found your name and address in his papers. Friedland was arrested in possession of a stolen painting by William Turner. And something tells me that you're connected to this affair.
I see. I think that we don't have anything else to say to each other, Miss Cross. I have to go now, so do me a favor and get out of here before I lose my calm.